Ministry of still Media and Media Communications, but Media Communications is very broad, right? And film, yeah, you know, if it's under Media Communications, then it's going to be controlled under this kind of political thing if the politics go bad again. So we don't know. And it's not like the Tourism Ministry or Ministry of Culture Tourism is any better. It's run by somebody we've never heard of, who pronounced when he was in Berlin that, you know, gays and lesbians don't exist in Malaysia. So nothing to be proud of there. So yeah, in terms of policies, we'll see what's going to happen. I think there might, in terms of politics and what you can touch on, it would be broader, but there will always be pushback too, and it's not like they haven't been trying to do that. The other thing is cultural movement. I think within literature too, I heard an interview on BFM radio, which I'm going to rip off and say here, that Malay literature is also kind of maybe frozen. Like in terms of what they're doing with the language, it's always been, and maybe we can blame Asas 50 for it. So this Asas 50 was a law 50 that came out in the 50s that said, you know, literature should be for the society, right? So it's whether there is a break between those who believe that, you know, it should be an expression of art and creativity, and others who say no, literature should be for, you know, to talk about social issues and politics. So I think this kind of social political critique element of Malay literature is still very, very, very strong. So there's not enough experimentation. So yeah, unfortunately, you know. So in terms of like the poetry, it's not very interesting. There are one or two amazing people, but then they're very fringe. They're regarded as very fringe. Yeah. So cultural movement, well, it's broke, and culture is still not what the new government is going to emphasize. I mean, first of all, they're broke, and they're now discovering how much money and how much corruption happened in finance, and so finance's budget has been cut by 80%. I heard it's 80%. So in terms of getting grants from finance will be hard. Finance is the film development, the National Development Film Board. So we'll see. I mean, and people were very hopeful when the new government came in, because suddenly all the theater activists and one of them, oh, let's go now, push to say they'll give us money. No, I mean, they're broke. You know, we're getting money from China. I mean, come on. So I would say we are still pretty anxious, and whether the anxiety is going to push us forward into the future, maybe not. Yeah.
I just want to share a bit about the National Cinema or National Film thing. One of the earliest experience I have in the big film festival was Rotterdam in year 2005. In that year, they show Uwe's Boy Laju Laju, which is all set in a Malay village, and you see it only in Malay. And then they have Ho Yu Hang Sanctuary, and James Lee, The Beautiful Washing Machine, which is only Chinese. And then we have a Tamil film I produced, and it's called Cheng Chalai, which is set in Rubber Estate, is only Indian. So at the time, I do wonder how, when the Dutch, if they only seen one of the film, how do they see Malaysia? Like if they only saw Boy Laju Laju, and then if they also see Beautiful Washing Machine, how? I think people will get totally disoriented. Like, is this the same country and all that? And for a long time, it's been like that. Even like now with Jagat or Lelaki Harapan Dunia and all that, it's quite often a single racial thing. But for me, I think that should be and is quite normal, because now I just remember the new policy from finance, which I was directly affected. I recently produced a film by a young filmmaker, Cheng, and we got a grant from finance, and they have like a condition, like it's so urgent, like and so sudden. It's like we have a new policy now from the ministry. They want us to show multiracial. So 30% of your film appearance, the character need to be of other race. So can you change this character of the mother's friend to a Malay? And they must have dialogue. It cannot be just like a passerby and all that. There must be interaction to show that we are a multiracial and we live in harmony. And I think it's a good initiative, but when you put it into policy and like a compulsory condition, it does feel very forced or I don't know. So I don't know how to see. Sometimes when there's a good initiative or a new policy coming, and how it got enforced or how it changed our creation or our film work, which it didn't feel right. Although maybe we think it should be the way, but it just doesn't feel right.
I'll quickly respond to that. Right from the start, when I used cosmopolitanism as a framework to talk about the indie filmmakers, I chose it very deliberately because cosmopolitanism allowed for the common humanity, for people to focus on the common humanity and on individuals. And I would say you heard it from Chai Ming-liang's mouth himself, right? When he said that he thought of himself as basically like a citizen of the world, right? So that there you have it, it's cosmopolitan. But also in many of the films here, it's about if you, as Taiwanese or as Chinese, can identify with the characters, I think that the filmmakers have succeeded. Right? You didn't have to understand the racial politics to empathize and to feel with the characters, to feel what they're undergoing. As long as you get that, they have succeeded. And I think that's what we should be supporting, successful films that still give us this sense of common humanity. And for me, I also don't think that you should force a film to be multicultural or multi-ethnic just to represent, because we don't live like that, right? And until the day we do, then okay, you know, but we don't, and then you're just going to be creating lots of Yasmin Ahmad type films, which are, you know, highly idealistic and not so very true.
Yeah, I really second Cheng's view. If you accept that, I mean, that's propaganda, right? It's not art, not film. But when you wake up and then find that the people you see in the community are all Chinese or all Malays, what's wrong with that? That's Malaysia. So Jagat is a Malaysia film, even though if they are all Indians. That's Malaysia. When you see a Chinese film made by Chui Mui, which is all Chinese, tell them that this is not Hong Kong or Taiwan or China, but Malaysia. So once Malaysians can accept that view, I think we have one Malaysia or Satu Malaysia. Other than that, Satu Malaysia is just one Nazi to grab money. That's one Malaysia also, right?
The problematic concept of national cinema. I mean, it's very problematic. It derives from all these concepts, pertinent concepts, nation, nationalism, national identity, yeah, and it's debatable and it's going to be finished. I think also one of the when people advocate this notion of national cinema, they always want to like. As I mentioned just now, there's always tension between, you know, to see or to regard cinema as playing an important role in representing it. So that's why then they always think about having this so-called official image, or having this kind of politically correct representation. So I think, a very cookie-cutter way, of this racial makeup of a specific nation. I think it's up to the filmmakers. If you have good stories, then basically you can express it.
Nigerian line is saying, where's the Sabah?
Yeah, because many because even many other ethnic communities are underrepresented in our film, from the orang asli to those ethnics in Sabah and Sarawak. Yes, so I personally would look forward to see more representations from other communities or ethnic groups. Yeah.
I just would like, by saying that, I can say a little about my experience of helping to set up this movie theater. As I've told many of you, this is an engineering university. Of the people at the administration level, they are engineering professors. So if you want to talk to them, to tell them that we need a movie theater to promote art, you are asking for trouble. You need to make a lot of explanation, because the first question they ask you is, isn't movie an entertainment thing? Right? And why do you need an entertainment to convert a classroom into the room for entertainment? So in other words, my experience is that, I, as well as my colleagues in the College of Humanities, had to learn to manage up. You don't simply manage down, you have to manage up. You have to manage the people in the administration and to educate them. And at times you have to feed them information as if they are babies, to tell them cinema is serious, film is art. You have to feed them the information in order to educate them. And we are very fortunate. The engineering professors in our university were very, very smart. They are the smartest people, and they are willing to listen. So when they listened, they supported us. In fact, when we set up this in 2004, that's not the right year. In fact, we started out in 2001. It took us 3 years. All right. And then in the year 2011, I remember that in the year 2011, we began to run out of film reels to show films on reel. And we knew that we needed a digital projector. It took us also 3 years, with a lot of lobbying work being done over and over and over again. I can write a book on that, right? So, turning back to the scene in Malaysia, I just feel that for those of us working in the academia, those of us who are filmmakers, what we could do is to talk to the people who own the power and educate them, manage up, do our best. By doing our job well, we are also helping the people out there to understand. We have to feed them information. I just feel that Malaysia, a ministry of culture, not just tourism. They should take the tourism out, just culture. And then film or cinema should go under this ministry of culture. That's what we talked about yesterday. Now, it may take another 10 years for that to happen. But then we have to do that now to tell the people out there, change their mentality. Let them know that film is an important art. And then this is one thing we can do. Another thing having to do with the national concept, national cinema. I would suggest that this is how we should do it. All right, those of us, the filmmakers and scholars, sit down and talk about this. how should we define the concept of national cinema? It should be left to us, those of us working in film studies, those of us who are filmmakers, but not the policymaker to decide on that. All right, and leave the issue for us to discuss. It is a debatable issue, but don't let the policymakers own the power to define what national cinema is. Take this power away from them, if that's possible. The policymakers, the people in politics, the politicians, what they should do is to support our work. All right? Like what we see, but Taiwan still cannot escape from that because a lot of the time politicians would meddle, would intervene. My feeling is that the successful model in Taiwan is a Golden Horse Award. You see in the Golden Horse Award, the government almost has no role. What the Taiwan government does is to support funding. Aside from that, what films won what award, the government has no role at all. It's all left to the committee of the Golden Horse Award. That's the kind of model I'm thinking of. Whenever we have a contention about the concept of national cinema or even the concept of national literature, leave that to the community of the artists and scholars for them to discuss. And the policymakers should not meddle or intervene. That seems to me to be something healthier to do.
Yeah, the problem of mediocrity of our ruling elites, right? I think you briefly mentioned about Ministry of Culture. I think it is right after the changing of government within the arts and culture scene. We actually did initiate a statement asking a new Ministry of Culture to be set up. Not a new one, but please remove tourism or something. Right? I think Zikri and I was also kind of involved in that proposal. But then when we sent to the minister, we tried to send it to some officials inside. But then the response that we've got, not officially response, but from a person saying that, oh, Dr. Mahathir said he wants to cut down the number of ministries, right? That's one of the promise that he made to Malaysians, because Najib has too many ministers, and then so it's not possible to set up a pure Ministry of Culture. But then they have a new Ministry of Economy, right? And they have the things that they want to develop, but then still culture is not a part of their concern. So that's the mediocrity of our ruling elites. Then when they like the phenomena and the policies that Cheng has just pointed out, when they are against something, they just go the opposite way, just the entire opposite way. They couldn't think of the other way around, and there's no in-between possibility. So I just recall what Professor the late Syed Hussein Alatas has said. Those Malay ruling elites, they are so jadong. The kejadongan of the minister, jadong is jahat, bodoh, dan sombong. They are not only jahat, which is very bad. They are also bodoh, so stupid, and they are also sombong, so proud, so arrogant. Yeah, so it's the mixture of this kind of politicians that we had in Malaysia right now. It's still, I think for PH, it's still the same characteristic that they have ultimately.
I don't know who are the policy makers, but for example, the new board members of FINAS, the requirement is there should not be people with a production house. So actually most filmmakers can be board members, and like Sanjay and Nadira, they are like more like industry experts, like it's another panel. But who are the board members are mostly people we don't know, and the problem with us is of course FINAS, and most of the people who are making policy are people who doesn't know films, and they're probably politician or civil servant who has no interest in films. But then I'm asking, like, if they cannot have filmmakers in the board members, are there any like film expert or academic in? And can you work hard to get in there and help us to change the policy? Be more involved.
Actually, a friend said, "Oh, I know, da da da," and I'm on the road. And if you would like, I could tell you. I'm like, "So, which one are you gonna put me under? The Chinese one, the Malay one, the Indian one?" Like, I'm only gonna get in there when it's fully Malaysian. Maybe I was a bit too idealistic. We'll see.
Any questions or comments from the floor?
Hi everyone, I'm still student in Taiwan University from Arts in Motion Picture Department. Yeah, and I know about 30 or 40 filmmaker Malaysian in studying in Taiwan, and we still studying how to doing a filmmaker, and we always know about politics in Malaysia. Every time every day or every month we have gathering together and how to live in Taiwan and how to know the knowledge here or another country. And last month just came back from Africa. I'm doing my last project in Africa for 1 month, and I just have seen for a black guy, and I know the culture there. The culture in there, Africa is learning Malaysian. Yeah, that is the truth, and I know the knowledge there. In one Taiwanese living there 30 years and told me that Africa now is believe the Malaysian the successful, so he needs to learning the Malaysian how to be successful and how to do a great country. Yeah, but I hearing that the things I saw that, is this true? Then he told me that's true. But I'm coming back to Taiwan, and I explained to my professors in Golden Horse. There are manager of kinds of them, and I think Malaysian students staying in Taiwan or another country, is finding a new hope for Malaysia. Then why? And every time I ask myself, why I need to go back for Malaysia? Here is safety for any things, and here's the friendly, and relation is more easy to conversations for Taiwanese or Hong Kong, because Chinese in learning language is about 4 or 5. So even Malaysian is Chinese is learning Chinese, Malay, Hokkien, Cantonese, English, Japanese, Korean. We all learning language in going another country for our life. But why we doing the filmmaker is having, we need to find a hope for my life, for which way. And this way is I'm choosing the filmmaker and tell the future or next generation why is the Malaysian keep the 15 years country, the Malay, Chinese, Indian, why there are one Malaysian but not seems like one Malaysian. Yeah. Every country, every person, Europe person is asking me what the Malaysian environment like that. I just say a beautiful country. It seems like in my school, I just said Malaysia is a beautiful country. It seems like I can be my friend or another country person. So I think just the professor says about 8,000 Malaysian is studying in Taiwan, but that is true, but we are finding a hope. I just said like this, new blood or in filmmaker for the person. Yeah. Thank you.
It's more a comment than a question, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think you just have to. I mean, like you've defined yourself first as a filmmaker, so you should do that, you know, and you can tell your stories anywhere, right? Because, yeah, I chose to go back, so maybe there's hope. But you know, every time on my way to work, when I stop to have teh tarik and roti, I tell myself I could never do that in Australia. So, yeah. I mean, that's partly, but okay. I mean, to be more serious, it's home, but it's also that we should also embrace our differences. We should be glad that we are able to speak more than one language. English, that we're bilingual or trilingual. I'm not smart enough to be trilingual or quadrilingual, but other people are, and you wouldn't be able to do that in other places. Most of the time, you give up. And if you migrate to Australia, you end up just speaking English, or your kids will, right? So I think there's a lot to be thankful for. Maybe the packaging is the thing. How do we package our films overseas? We should say you cannot just take one; you have to take three, right? And I think that gradually you'll see that it's uniquely Malaysian. Like Fly By Night, there are scenes where they have to speak Malay. Well, in Jagat there are scenes they have to speak Malay, and they're Chinese characters. So the multiculturalism isn't forced, but it's there. When they're sitting outside talking, and there's like a green or blue wall, and it's obviously a kopitiam, you can hear Chinese conversations in the back. So that's Malaysia, right? It doesn't have to be forced, but you cannot take the atmosphere out. When you do, then it's not real. So I think that we have to appreciate that diversity there, rather than see it as something that we constantly have to overcome. I think that to be kind of that time when there was this sort of anti-racist campaign happening, saying that we are one, like the whole one Malay. We unite, we're Malaysian first. To be colorblind is actually a problem too. Like it's a problem in the West, where they're like, oh no, you're all American, but no, actually we're racist towards you, right? So we appreciate, or maybe we appreciate those differences. We acknowledge that there are strengths and there are weaknesses, but you can't take everything that is good only and then junk you kind of have to. If we live in a truly if we kind of want to live in a multicultural society, we can't just say, oh, I love your food, but I don't like you. You can't, So I think that, yeah, it's not heaven, but it's home.
Okay, I will just add a few words. Yeah, Gaik's words very well said. I left Malaysia in 1981, but as a student from Taiwan to study. But then I came to Taiwan again in 1986, and then we have our great President, Prime Minister Mahathir Yusoff. Almost at that time, I decided not to go back. But then I didn't surrender my nationality after a few years when I got married and have a daughter. I got married, I think it's fine, but have a daughter is terrible if you are not a Taiwanese. So that's the only reason I surrendered my passport to the underground embassy in Taipei. But over the years, I just on and off went back, and almost every year. But so I am a Taiwanese citizen or nationality, but I am a Malaysian for my whole life. So everything I do in Taiwan is for Malaysia, as a Malaysian. So I will, for example, I will hold a May 13 conference in Busan, right? I think that's the only place in Taiwan that we can have such a conference on the May 13 incident. So, yeah, also in Malaysia, but you need to consider more. You need to have funding for May 13 conference, which is not that easy. So I think it's kind of choice and responsibility. So no matter where you are, if you are born in Malaysia, so you are Malaysian, that's your responsibility. So you cannot just envy, say, okay, Taiwan is so democratic, America is so democratic, France is so good, but just as a visitor, but Malaysia is so bad that you want to get rid of it, you don't want to go back. Unless for other reasons, but if you can go back, just go back and change the country, right? That's your responsibility. And freedom is even easier than literature to answer Zikri's question, the future is image world, not matters.
If I may offer any advice, I guess I'm old enough to offer some advice, because like many of you, I'm Chinese educated, right? My advice is that if you go back to Malaysia, right, you have to brush up your language skill.